One of the things we've managed to do with our clients, we tell them, bring us on board at the very beginning. When you think of an idea, tell us, as we brief the agency, bring us on board. We start brainstorming on how we can do it. And I've found that for most of the clients who do that, we managed to come up with something more exciting. There's a need for creativity in our markets. And more importantly, the data actually backs it up. 75% of everything we do on digital is actually creative first.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. My guest today is Betty Njiraini, somebody I've known as a digital advertising practitioner, probably for the last 10 years or so. She's somebody who's really been at the forefront of driving not just the current practices, but the next practices in this area in Kenya and East Africa. Betty is the regional manager for Eskimi, a digital demand-side platform when it comes to digital advertising that has significant presence across over 40 markets globally, but more importantly, one of the most important players when it came to programmatic advertising in its market, as well as the rest of Africa over the last 10 or so years. Thank you for joining us, Betty.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm
How
great.
have you been?
I've been well, and it's good to meet you in person after so long. Huh?
Yeah.
So, Betty, I want to get a little bit of flavor around your background, who you are, how you got into this profession. Of course, we met about 10 years ago, I think, at a particular digital marketing agency where we did a campaign with you when I was with gold.com.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start from there. Give us some historical context about you.
I think I've always been passionate about digital from the very early years of 2014.
Wow.
And I think my highlight for me was when we did the Blaze campaign launch for Safaricom. Blaze by Safaricom.
Which is when we first met, yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the one thing that struck me was how the whole creative execution was built into a digital platform.
Correct.
And everything that came together, like, on Goal, for example, we had a very bespoke creative asset there.
Yes.
And all the other local publishers, which I'll hopefully be talking about today, and the supply. And the elements that just set us as Africans, aside by doing innovative things locally over the years has really stood out. So for me, the digital story is one of, I don't know even where to start, because it's a lot of many small things that have stood out, like the Blaze event, or rather relaunch and stuff like that. And then coming into Eskimi, where we are now saying creative is the real thing that sells our campaigns, and how we bring that out for all our campaigns. So I'm really keen to see how, as we go along, in my coming years, how does all the things I have learned through our creative staff, our digital campaigns, and so on and so forth, will come to life to see Eskimi prosper in East Africa. Yeah.
So as the regional manager for Eskimi, right, I think you have a unique perspective in the region, Kenya, presumably Uganda, Tanzania, and so forth. But what are some of the things that you have noticed or seen when it comes to sort of the digital advertising landscape? What does it look like? What's happening? What's working? What's not working? Maybe you can give us some perspectives on that.
The one thing that's always struck me is that we spend so much time building the traditional assets. Your key visual has to be 100%. The back and forth at the agency.
Very locked in, huh?
It had, oh my God, the reverts were like many, more than 15.
Is it almost an obsession with legacy media? Is that the issue?
I think so, because I wouldn't understand why we had a whole 2 months to do TVCs and KV, and then the tail end, 2 days to launch, we have now the digital assets. And at that point, there is nothing much I can do. I think by the time I was leaving the agency, the shift was now changing to putting digital first, thinking about the digital activations and how everything comes together. But mostly, it has always been predominantly traditional media first, then digital last. And at that point, your hands are tied. You're like, why? We could have done much more, with these assets, with activations, with supply, and so on and so forth.
And I think for me, that was particularly frustrating because just like you, I mean, literally you would take creative that was designed for a billboard shrink it and make it a banner, which was illegible. You couldn't even read it, right?
You couldn't.
Because it wasn't designed with a digital-first approach.
Exactly.
So how are you dealing with clients? I'm thinking agency side, client side in terms of brands, to sort of address those issues. How do you sort of address that before it even becomes a problem these days?
So one of the things we've managed to do with our clients, we tell them, bring us on board at the very beginning. When you think of an idea, tell us, as you brief the agency, bring us on board. We start brainstorming on how we can do it. And I've found that for most of the clients who do that, we managed to come up with something more exciting. I think one of my clients used to say this loosely, that this is where creativity comes to die when it comes to digital. And it used to upset me so badly because I'm like, there is so much opportunity.
Yeah.
But if you give us 2 days, there is nothing we can do about it. So we've brought them on board and we are encouraging them. Tell us, brief us on time. Let us discuss, let us brainstorm. We bring our creative guys from Lithuania also to a call, have a brainstorm and see how we can bring everything together. And it's been amazing. I think I can say for 2 or 3 of my clients have really gotten it. And even the creatives that you'll see today, you can clearly tell these clients are thinking way ahead. And they're not just thinking about, traditional, but digital first. Then how do we cascade it to the rest of the channels?
So Eskimi is renowned, if I can put it that way, especially in Kenya and the rest of Africa.
Yeah.
For being kind of like the pioneer in programmatic advertising campaigns and doing this demand side platform that you have. Why do you think Eskimi has been successful, more specifically in Kenya and East Africa? Because we are now also seeing a lot of other programmatic platforms in the marketplace. For many customers and brands, it even gets confusing. And even me, my agency, we're constantly getting approached to run campaigns with them, and we're like, you don't even know where to start. So why Eskimi, and also what has made Eskimi successful?
I'll say the 2 things that come out strongly for us is the localization. One, we have the local teams. For majority of the international ad techs, by the time you get somebody in your office, it's almost impossible.
So being on the ground is a factor.
Being on the ground is a factor, and I am happy that you've built a strong team that is able to come sit with you, with your agency, take them through everything that we do, help them unlock any bottlenecks and stuff. And more importantly, for countries like Tanzania and Ethiopia, for instance, where their first local language is not English, you have to understand the local nuances in Amharic for Ethiopia, in Swahili for Tanzania.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And you have to understand that creative and see, okay, so what do Tanzania people like? If you make it a gamification, do they even have time to look at their phones? Do they even have proper smartphones? And that bit about having local team on the ground has really won for us, for sure, because we understand the client's challenges, we know how to unlock the strategy, and we know what bespoke creatives fit what client, and how we can scale it to other markets. And the one thing I love is that we started in Africa first. We understood that this market is not your usual market. We still complain about our data depleting. So if you see something animated, you're like, this thing is gonna take all my data, But over the time, we've learned, we've taught our clients that it won't actually. It just depends with how you scale it, how big it is, how far people are mobile fast, and stuff like that. Secondly, our supply. One of the things we've done really well is talk to our local suppliers in terms of local publishers, your Nations, your Standards, your Tuko, your Pulse. And we are telling them, guys, we can do this together. Yeah, we have a partnership with them where we have either we buy media through OpenRTB, or we can have preferred deals, and we can also serve them more bespoke creatives like screen takeovers. You remember when we launched Blaze? I'll not mention the client. There was a full, page takeover on almost all the local sites.
I remember that.
On Goal, there was something happening. On Nation, on Standard, it was amazing. Like when you went on that day, you could for sure know something is happening. And that is what we are trying to do. And some of the conversations we are having are, we don't want to stay on the boring side, even with you guys as our suppliers.
Yes.
Let's help you do something amazing to be able to set yourselves apart. Because I'm sure somebody goes to Nation and sees this amazing creative. They're curious to know who is doing this.
Absolutely. And I think maybe now we can sort of segue into what's happening today.
Yeah.
Today's a big day for Eskimi in Kenya and, of course, the region because that's where you are. Um, and you have this amazing campaign you're launching called Don't Be Boring, which
Yeah.
is part of your brand repositioning. Can you tell us a bit about the philosophy and the thinking behind that and how it translates to the regional market in East Africa?
So creativity has always been at the core of Eskimi, of everything we do Eskimi. And I think even from what Vitas was talking about, how we started and stuff like that, the first ever Share Coke campaign was actually done on
Oh, really?
Eskimi platform, yes.
Excellent.
Before it actually cascaded to the metas and the rest of the world. And having done it so many times, we've realized there's a need. There's a need for creativity in our markets. And more importantly, the data actually backs it up. 75% of everything we do on digital is actually creative first. So imagine only 30% is what goes to your media spend. So you have to make sure that your creative is like top notch, you know?
On point, yeah.
So, and at that point, towards early last year, we made a decision. We don't want to be another DSP that just sells media and does all the mundane things that everyone is doing in the market. We decided we want to be one, the disruption in the market by doing unique creatives that engage with people, that are data backed up. Because again, most of our clients in East Africa will be like, this thing looks nice, but then what does it do for me? But as long as you can give them data to back it up, then they are sold. So we are not only giving you cool executions, but also data backed up creatives. You can be able to measure, you can be able to report on, to your stakeholders on what we are delivering for you.
So I want us to walk us through, and I think for our audiences, especially in East Africa,
Yeah.
so they understand the nuances here.
Yes.
We have the creative, I suppose, dashboard where you can create things.
Yeah.
If I understand it correctly, you also have a creative studio, meaning you have internal humans who
Yes.
actually design. You then have a pre-testing capability. So before your ad actually flights, you can test the creative to see if it's working or not, and of course rework it accordingly. And then you also have some neuroscience testing capability and post-campaign measurement that you do. Can you walk us through that process? Because I think people might just see it as yet another programmatic platform, but maybe if they understand what goes into it from an East African perspective, they'll truly appreciate why Eskimi is different.
All right. So from the onset, as I mentioned, you have to bring us on board when you're starting to create the assets.
Yeah.
So at that point, for most of the brands, especially the big brands, you'll find that they'll have their own focus groups, send out the message, test it, see how it did, and then come back, and so on and so forth. So we are telling you, you don't have to do all that. We can actually test for you on digital within 30 minutes. I've tested majority of the comms that we are putting out today. In 30 seconds, I could be able to tell where is the prominence in terms of the message.
This is AI or something?
Yes, it's AI. Everything is AI because neurons actually it's a neuroscience AI tool that helps us learn how your mind, sees the ad within the different heat maps and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So like for today, most of the assets we've actually tested them. We know that somebody, when they see a message like, don't be boring, Eskimi rebrand, where is the main focus, where the main focus goes. And for you as a brand, or any client for that matter, you can actually test all your assets and see, is your call to action clear? Is the value proposition clear? Is the message, looking like it makes sense? Do people actually understand? Because the tool is made like in a human perspective, how we understand clarity, how we focus, how we draw attention and stuff like that. Kind of behaves like a human.
It's AI.
AI. So at the very beginning, you can test your comms and see whether it makes sense, whether people understand it or not, or what you need to change. And then once you've launched the campaign, now we have Lumen, which then tests the attention for the comms that you're running. After you've run the campaign and we're able to report for you attention, focus and so on and so forth, then we can do a brand lift survey where we tell you if you're comparing, for example, if it's one of the FMCG brands and you want to find out how are your competitors, seeing you, and so on and so forth. We can do 5 to 6 questions real quick. In 2 weeks, you have your feedback. You don't have to wait for Ipsos.
Yes.
After like 6 months.
Okay.
You can do it real fast on digital and you get your feedback.
So even the reporting and the turnaround time, it's
very,
also real time?
Very real time, very fast. And by the time your thematic, if you're doing a thematic campaign, is going into the 3rd week, you know whether you're doing a good job or not.
So there's something else that comes to mind, and this is something that we encounter a lot in this space, where a client or an agency or brand will tell you, well, why would I come to Eskimi when I can go directly to Google, I can go to Nation Media, I can go directly to Meta and buy my ads? Why would they come to you versus going to these platforms directly?
Because we've automated everything for you in one place. So Google, we are already a Google partner. So all the inventory that Google has, we do.
Okay.
And the nature of programmatic ad techs is that we are able to optimize different ad exchanges. And I spoke to supply. So all your local supply in terms of your nations, your Tuko, they're already within Eskimi. So you're getting your big, wider reach within one platform, and you don't have to deal with individual supplies.
So basically, you're the single source of truth.
Exactly.
Through that one place, you get everywhere.
You get everything, and you get the bespoke creativity.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit today's event, what's going to be happening today in the afternoon and going into the evening, and what we can expect later today?
So one of the things we want to do is obviously explain to our customers and the brands and the agencies what is new within Eskimi, why obviously Eskimi stands out among all these other people, and what is unique going into 2025. Conversations around AI have been very big. I know every single event I've gone last year, there was something about AI. But I don't think we understood what AI meant, to be honest, especially for most of the people. I know some of our brands even tried to use it for images, copy and stuff like that, but it goes beyond that. It's the measurement, it's the neurons that we're talking about. So all those things are the things we'll be unpacking. We'll also be unpacking beyond, the creatives. What else are we giving you? Have we cleaned up our supply? Again, there's a misconception that programmatic ad techs have leftover inventory. But we are saying that's not the case. We have opportunity and ability to actually build for you quality supply, quality inventory, top sites and apps that you can leverage on to run your campaign.
At an affordable price.
At an affordable price.
Brilliant.
And give you the biggest reach in the market.
So as we move forward, I think with the Don't Be Boring campaign and what you're planning, going forward from here, what can we expect from Eskimi in East Africa over the next few years?
Disruption.
Disruption. Ooh,
a lot.
I like that.
So for clients who've worked with us before,
yes,
and you have seen some of our cool creatives, I think this year you'll be even more wowed because some of the things that you're about to unleash in the market, they're going to be nice. They're going to be amazing. And I am strongly convicted in saying this because I know my team is working behind the scenes, pushing our creative studio to give us all the cool executions. Some of the stuff we've already launched with some clients who the early adopters, and I'm really happy. I'm looking forward to it. I don't want to preempt because I just want people to be surprised at what we will do. Yeah, but it's going to be amazing.
So Betty, as we sort of come to the end of our conversation, I'd like to ask maybe a couple more questions.
Yes.
Number one would be, as we look forward and we're thinking about the future, what are the things that you think the marketing practitioners, the officers, the people who are operating broadly in running campaigns and so forth, and of course the brands who are buying media, what are the things that you want them to take away from a Kenyan / East African perspective in terms of what they should be thinking about, how maybe Eskimi can assist them, and anything that you feel is important them take away from this conversation?
Their key takeaway is don't be boring.
That's it, don't be boring.
Don't be boring. And this is the reason. I think we got to a place where we got comfortable as marketers and you're just happy to get your digital assets, your 300 by 250, whether it's a GIF or it's a static, and you run with it. But there's a lot of opportunity. We are in the market trying to say, guys, let's set up a workshop. We'll come showcase to you what this looks like, how we can do it at no charge. No, we are not charging you at all to train you. We are doing certification on Programmatic. We are not charging you at all. We just want you to give us 1 hour. We'll teach you everything you need to do. If you have a big campaign coming up, we'll have a brainstorm. We'll help you unlock your proposition. And I think we also need to stop rushing to the end, to just launch digital for the sake. This is the one channel that can unlock for you the biggest opportunity. And most of the brands are already moving to 60-70% digital spend. How do we deliver if we don't do the work? We have to do the work, the creative execution, the brainstorms, and everything's for it to come together and have those impactful campaigns.
So I think you're echoing some of what I heard today from your colleagues.
Yes.
Which is, it's not just about the science of running a campaign in terms of targeting and audience and conversions.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing here is also that creativity as part of the branding and the key messaging and the key principles of that campaign takes us back to combining the art and the science of what actually creates an effective marketing campaign, correct?
Exactly. And brands need to stop taking the global creatives and forcing them on the local markets.
So localization is also important.
Localization has to be there 100%.
Make it look relevant to the audience here.
And by the way, making it look relevant doesn't mean having black people. It's a lot of things, like what do Kenyans do? We love nyama choma, we love to play, we love to travel, we love many things. And you can have people from all mixed races having a good time in a Kenyan natural way that, adds value to your campaign.
To capture the cultural nuances as well.
That's the only way people connect.
And would you say that you're seeing this in campaign results and performance? Have you been able to, when these principles are applied, you're seeing significant outcomes?
Yeah.
Maybe some campaigns, you don't have to say the names, or what sort of impact does that have when you run a campaign?
There's one campaign we ran with one of our clients in Ethiopia, and it was a video campaign. And it was purely on the authentic way that Ethiopians enjoy their meals, they eat during a festival, for example, or a holiday, a local Ethiopian traditional holiday. They use their hands, they feed each other. And those local nuances came out so well in the creative and also in the actual campaign. It was fantastic. Now, the challenge I found is that most of the clients want to push the product. You want me to see the bottle, you want me to see the machine.
It becomes the hero.
And I'm like, this does not do anything. We are human first. It does not do anything to my emotions. It does not evoke any interest. It's just a product. I know we say that products are functional, but even then, I have so many TVs I could potentially buy. If you sell a good story, you might convince me otherwise. And that's all in the messaging and how you deliver it.
So the details do matter.
They do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Betty, thank you so much, and really appreciating this opportunity to have this conversation and hearing the Kenyan and East African perspective of digital advertising, but also Eskimi with your Don't Be Boring campaign, and wishing you all the best today, later today when you launch this new pivotal moment for Eskimi.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you so much, Moses.
It's a
nice
pleasure
to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there you have it, a conversation with Betty Njiraini, the regional manager for Eskimi in East Africa. She's given us really some unique perspectives around their business in this region, but more specifically looking at the broader digital advertising landscape and also specifically programmatic advertising and what it means for this region. What I've taken away is that cultural nuances matter, creativity at the core is everything, and Eskimi, I think, has managed to preempt many of the shortcomings that we've seen in some of these programmatic platforms by giving us an end-to-end solution with a local presence. Once again, thank you for joining us for this edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro, and we'll catch you in the next one.